What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about why Alberta is completely rat-free. And honestly, how is Alberta completely rat-free? Can an entire province actually be completely free of rats? How is that even possible? I didn't think I'd be so captivated by this topic, but it's like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Honestly, when I first heard about this, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. I was like impressed, but also thinking, what an incredibly random thing for Alberta to do. I was curious, but also a bit scared, even a little scared. Like, if Alberta can be completely free of rats, what else can they do? What else is going up there? What else is going on up there? I don't know. Anything could be happening if this is happening. But also, a part of me didn't believe this was even possible, so I went ahead and Googled it, and sure enough, when you Google Alberta rat-free, there are articles, there are sources backing up this claim. Alberta's rat control program. Rats don't pose a risk to Alberta's famous rat-freeness. How does Alberta, Canada stay rat-free? Sure enough, people have asked this very same question. People have reported on this topic, which has led me to this video right here, which is going to explain why Alberta has 0 rats. There's not one rat, like there's not 1 or 2 rats running around up there. I just don't believe it. How? Why? So let's find out.
This is a map of all the people in the world who don't live in Alberta, Canada. Interestingly, you can see the only place in the world that doesn't have people who don't live in Alberta, Canada is Alberta, Canada.
Okay.
More interestingly, though, this is nearly identical to the map of all the places in the world that are swarming with rats. Also pretty much everywhere except for Alberta, Canada.
I mean, rats must be one of the most common animals on the planet, especially based on this little map and conversation the narrator is presenting. But it's like, were rats a huge issue in Alberta? What's the history behind this? What prompted Alberta to become rat-free? I'm assuming they're gonna delve into the history a bit here of how on earth this is possible.
These rats spread disease, they destroy property, and worst of all, they take control of impressionable young French chefs and force them to cook a dish that's basically just soggy vegetables.
Okay, all right, joking aside, it's not about, let me be perfectly clear, like, it sounds like a very nice thing that it's completely rat-free. Rats carry diseases and germs, and they get in your garbage, and they do all sorts of stuff, but how do you go about eradicating them all on a whole provincial basis? You know, Alberta is not a small area.
One of mankind's most persistent and damaging plagues. So how did Alberta manage to avoid them?
Yeah.
Well, in order to explain why there aren't rats in Alberta, you need to understand why there are rats, well, everywhere else.
Okay.
You see, much like Asian carp, Burmese pythons, and James Corden, rats aren't native to North America, but their presence in our ecosystem has proved equally destructive. The common rat actually originated somewhere around Mongolia and began to quickly spread to other parts of the world after the Middle Ages.
That's pretty amazing. I didn't actually know we were going to get into like the biology of rats or the history of rats, but here we are. It is kind of fascinating to think that they started like on the complete other side of the planet and then somehow ended up in North America. I think they must have actually physically been on ships that sailed to North America and then just spread.
The shift from wooden structures to brick buildings, and our propensity to fill those brick buildings with cheese, made it easy for rats to take shelter in climates outside their natural habitat, so long as there were human structures there to shelter them.
Okay.
Once a few rats got settled in one of these new climates, they became nearly impossible to remove.
Yeah.
A single pair of rats.
Yeah, the more I think of this, the more I find it unbelievable that the premise of this video, that Alberta is the world's only rat-free area that humans live in. How on earth is that possible?
Rats can multiply to about 15,000 in about a year.
Yeah.
When
Oh
the
my
Industrial
God.
Revolution,
Hold up, what did they just say?
a pair of rats can multiply to about 15,000 in about a year.
a pair of rats can become 15,000 in the course of a year by multiplying. So exactly, if two rats get into Alberta, God forbid if two rats sneak into Alberta, I pity them because of what on earth is happening there that has eradicated all their friends and family. But they could create 15,000 new rats, and then what, you know?
When the Industrial Revolution rolled around, we started building a lot more brick buildings and filling them with a lot more cheese, and the rats were able to spread to every single corner of the Earth,
Right.
except for the bonus continent, Antarctica, a few Arctic islands, and Alberta.
Right. The literal frozen wastelands where humans don't live, and Alberta.
Originally, Alberta's rat-free status was thanks to a little variable I call the no one wants to live there factor. Since modern rats are almost completely dependent on humans to support them,
What?
this factor did all the heavy lifting until the 1910s.
Wait, what? So rats just weren't common in Alberta because it wasn't very popular? Not a lot of people lived there, especially in the 1900s. Starting in 1911, where the population started, man, it actually exploded. Became like 5 times bigger in the course of 10 years. Interesting.
When starting a barley farm in the middle of nowhere became all the rage. Alberta's other natural defense is its unique geography. On 3 sides of its border, it's surrounded by a hefty buffer of hostile landscapes.
Wow. This is kind of interesting as well, because I don't know much about Alberta or much about Canadian geography in general. So I actually didn't know it's got, you know, some places around the globe throughout history have been advantageous, like for military purposes, to stop raiders from attacking islands that can defend because they're surrounded by water. Alberta has natural defenses to combat the rats. Okay.
To the west, you've got the Rocky Mountains, where rats can't survive the harsh high-altitude conditions or lease a decent four-wheeler.
Okay.
To the south, you've got the high plains of Montana, which are too sparsely populated and generally depressing for rats to make it very far.
Okay.
To the north, you've got cold. That leaves the southern section of its eastern border, adjacent to Saskatchewan, where rats could possibly invade.
Alberta? Wow, never would have thought of this, but Alberta is like geographically strategically placed to be perfect to combat the existence of rats. But they can still come in from the east. So what does Alberta do about that?
And though it only took my writer like 10 minutes of reading Alberta's government website to figure that out, it took the rats until the summer of 1950 to finally find Alberta's weak spot.
Oh, so Alberta was actually rat-free for a lot of its history, like up until 70 years ago, just because of its geography, naturally. Okay, so 1950, the rats finally came, and who? I have so many questions about this. Like, who in Alberta decided, no, this will not stand. These rats have found our weakness, and we will not stand for this. Like, did the government of Alberta decide to, like, form a anti-rat coalition, or what?
When the first few rats were spotted crossing Alberta's border, the government acted quickly. After all, they were already calling themselves, quote, the only rat-free area in North America.
It really is the Alberta government. They literally were what I was joking about. They're like, no, we have made a killing advertising our province as the only rat-free area in North America, and God forbid, if we lose that, then what have we got? What have we got?
And they weren't ready to invest the money in a more enticing tourism slogan. Instead, they established a rat control zone along their eastern border.
What?
Originally, the rat control zone was really more of a giant poisoned farmland zone, with Alberta's government dumping 140,000 pounds or 65,000 kilograms of arsenic trioxide onto all of the farms along the border with Saskatchewan.
Not what I was expecting. It's literal rat chemical warfare in Alberta. Like, no exaggeration. Giant poisoned farmland zone. So there's only a little area that rats can even get into Alberta. Man, I honestly did not think this topic would be so complicated or interesting, but here it's actually pretty fascinating. Only a small area those pesky rats can get in. So that's the only entrance that Alberta has to defend. So lay down the poison farmland defense, okay?
This led to the deaths of countless farm animals and pets,
What?
so naturally the government discontinued the program for costing too much money.
Oh my
Today's program
God. The casualties of war as well. What?
involves a publicly funded team of rat inspectors and assassins who annually inspect every single farm and building in the control zone.
No. The chemical warfare wasn't working. Too many casualties, too many cows going down in Alberta. Bring in the only logical conclusion. Bring in the rat assassins.
Inspectors and assassins who annually inspect every single farm and building in the control zone, upwards of 4,000 premises depending on the year.
Okay.
Now, if you moved to the rat control zone because you thought it sounded like an exotic getaway, you're in for a rough surprise.
This is so fascinating, like how much effort the Alberta government really put into this. Like, this is a lot of money, time, and effort. Creating this zone, formulating a plan to use that poison and purchase it and lay it down, and then hiring. So that couldn't kind of carry on forever. So they built a literal rat rat coalition, a anti-rat military group to fight. They patrol the entrance to Alberta, stopping all rats from entering. That's not made up. That is actually what's happening.
It's actually a zone where rats are controlled. And by controlled, I mean trapped, gas-baited, or in more extreme cases, dug out with a bulldozer. Now, Sam,
my.
you might be saying, surely there are other ways for rats to get into Alberta.
Yeah.
After all, you make all those videos about transportation and planes and stuff. Well, to that I say, stop confusing me for that logistics nerd. Like, who even watches videos about logistics? Really, what a waste of time. But to that I also say, yes, good point. Alberta's rat controlling measures do extend beyond just the rat control zone.
Really?
Firstly, Albertans are banned from owning rats, even domesticated fancy rats, as pets.
I don't know why I'm like so shocked by this. I don't even think I've ever met anyone who had a pet rat, but I know people out there in the world have pet rats. At first I was thinking, oh, is it kind of unreasonable for Alberta to ban pet rats? And then I was just thinking, you know what? At this point, what is unreasonable anyway? We're dumping gas on them. We're shooting at them with rifles. We're banning them from being pets. I think it just comes with the living in Alberta. Comes with the territory at this point.
Only zoos, universities, and certain research facilities are permitted to possess rats.
Okay.
If a rat were to sneak in on a truck or a plane, there's an active hotline, 310-RATS, and an email address, established last year because email is complicated, where
There is not a hotline for reporting rats. There's not. No.
facilities are permitted to possess rats. If a rat were to sneak in on a truck or a plane, there's an active hotline,
There's an active hotline.
310-RATS, and an email address, established last
Okay.
year because email is complicated, where any concerned
I guess the funny part of this is just how seriously it's taken. Like, honestly, you gotta respect it a little bit. It's funny how serious it's being taken, but it's honestly like, if you're gonna be the province, well, heck, the only man-made, man-inhabited area on Earth that can say they're rat-free, this is the lengths you have to go. You gotta make the hotline as well.
Albertan can report a rat sighting to the government, who then investigates it thoroughly.
Wow.
Though Alberta
It's like the FBI for the rats. The police. It's like you're calling the police on the rats, and they send investigators to come track that poor rat down.
gets hundreds of these reports every year, most of them turn out to be squirrels or muskrats or a mafioso who was caught wearing a wire. Only a tiny fraction turn out to be the real deal, and those cases get heavy news coverage.
I just imagine a bunch of Canadian anti-rat agents bursting into a barn, guns up, flashlights all pointed at this little critter, and it's just a squirrel. He's like, "It wasn't me! It wasn't me!" And they're like, "Let's pack it up, boys. Let's go home. Nothing to see here. It was just a squirrel."
Or a 6-minute YouTube video explaining why a rat in Alberta is somehow exceptional. Now, being free of rats isn't the only advantage of living in this giant swath of frozen farmland.
Oh?
Albertans also have access to Canadian Netflix. I mean, they've got Pulp Fiction, The
Wait a
Matrix,
minute.
series that stole our idea of explaining things. Superior streaming.
This is just an ad. Okay. All right. That's actually the end. Okay. Wow. That's the perk of living in Alberta that I never, ever imagined, never knew about. It's rat-free, and they fight tooth and nail to keep it that way. This video was by Half As Interesting, and I gotta give it a like. I have another video I want to pull up. Rat-free Alberta, how a team of people is keeping Alberta free of rats. This is like gonna, I think, showcase the Alberta rat patrol that they were explaining in the first video and what that looks like. Phil Merrill heads the Alberta Rat Patrol. Twice a year, the patrol looks for rat activity in every building within the rat control zone. That rat control zone, the RCZ. Twice a year, they look for rat activity. Okay. Is this a full-time job? Yeah, there's the rat control zone.
Under a granary, I'll be looking for runs or grass stomped down or chewing marks on the edge of the wood or little trails or tracks. Or
He's legitimately a rat detective. He tracks down rats. He looks for signs of rats.
scat. And when I move to the bales, I'm basically looking for holes or runs into the bales.
Okay.
And anytime there's rat activity found, then we take some sort of action.
Oh, goodness. He seems so kind and good-natured, but he's a rat's worst enemy.
We're the only government jurisdiction we know of that is rat-free. There's islands that are rat-free and small areas that are rat-free.
Okay.
Alberta does not have any resident population of rats.
Are people in Alberta, like, proud of this? I guess it is something to be proud of, but I have to say, as an American who's never heard this ever before, it just comes off as so random. But when you actually learn about the lengths Alberta goes to and how, difficult this probably is, and it sounds real nice to not have to worry about rats. Honestly, the longer I've learned about this today, the more I'm coming around to, like, that's kind of cool. That, everywhere else in the world is just letting rats do whatever they want, run amok, own the place. Not Alberta.
And the only way we will get rats is if they move overland from the east, or if someone brings them in with a transport vehicle.
Right. Smuggles the rats in. The rat control zone was created in 1950 when Alberta had over 600 rat infestations. Wow, so they have to literally go through every building up and down the rat control zone on the eastern side of Alberta. They do this twice a year. Does it take half a year to, comb through every building, I wonder? This might be a full-time job, actually, isn't it? Alaska's close to the Alberta border. Rats have been nesting in this granary.
I can see where they've been in the grass. I can see a little run there where he's been. Oh, and if you look close here, I can see tracks in the dirt. I can see where they've been going down there and there. That's rats. They're hard to get out. That's a bin right full of oats. Oats is their favorite food, and
these rats are shaking in their boots right now inside this granary. They are shaking in fear.
They're eating the oats rather than taking our bait.
Since 2003, there has been 1 to 2 rat infestations a year in Alberta. Well, that answers my question a little bit. I was like, is there not any rats? There are some rats in Alberta, but those pretty much all get, figured out and bust. There's a rat bust once or twice a year, it looks like. So they really are cracking down on this, regularly, all the time. My God. I guess he put, poison down or something? Yeah, I assume he left them some lethal surprises in there, as is his mandate as rat patrol, rat control. Wow. I don't, like I said, when I read this topic, why Alberta is the only rat-free place on the planet with humans, I was shocked. I was taken aback. I was impressed. And that's kind of what the feeling I'm leaving with at the end of this video is like, impressive. I would not honestly have thought something like this was possible. Like even reading about it here, even learning about this topic, I was like, that does not sound possible. An entire province that's rat-free. But, it does make more sense learning that if you're gonna try to make a place rat-free, Alberta is like the perfect place to try to do that. Geographically, it's working in your favor, keeping out the rats to the north, west, and south. And then, I don't know, it's basically up to you to put together a band of rat killers to let the people of Alberta sleep soundly at night. But honestly, this was strangely interesting. Like, strangely really interesting to learn about. And learn that this is even possible. So I actually enjoyed this quite a bit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian culture, and stuff about Canada that I have never seen or learned about, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.